Hi everyone, welcome back to Kingdom College. It's Celine and we'll be going through the Power Reading Test 32 today. So firstly, I want to go through some key points that I want you guys to just keep in mind as we do go through these questions. So firstly, I want to talk about structure. So the Peel or Patel paragraph structure, which is up on the board. So this structure is basically the building blocks to whatever you are writing, right? Any analytical or persuasive text always utilizes the Peel and Patel paragraph structure. Sometimes these analytical pieces will not have one incredibly dense paragraph. Instead, they may choose to separate the point into two sentences, and then the evidence into three sentences, and the technique into one sentence, and etc. Right? So there is not one unified paragraph, but there is this structure that is very clear, right? So I also want to talk about how you can make your information or your writing purposeful and concise. So that is that goes with the idea of writing with purpose, but also if you have the choice or the space or capacity to change your two sentences into one sentence, feel free to do so, because that just makes your work, I guess, shorter and perhaps easier to read. And in that case, it's not repetitive or redundant. That's something you'll see in these texts that we do analyze today, because these sentences should not be well, you shouldn't have three sentences saying the same thing, because it comes off very pointless and boring. So yeah. Now, secondly, I want to emphasize the message of purposeful reading. I have said this part a couple of times in previous videos, but in this case, I want to talk about how we should really be consuming these texts. So we should be asking things like the purpose, like why write about this particular event or item, and why would people read about it, right? The authors or composers aren't just creating things for no reason. We have to try and figure out why and what they're trying to tell us. So even if it takes you, like, say, half an hour to complete reading a particular piece, that's okay, that's fine. Take your time, because it's so much more better to figure out the overarching message or the small details of a text rather than just finishing reading a one-page extract in the span of 5 seconds and not even knowing a single word that was said. So anyway, I'd like you guys to demonstrate these skills by reading this extract independently. Please screenshot them and read them in your own time, and have a go at the questions, and please return back to this video. So for the first question, we are given the first sentence of the second paragraph. So we have already been introduced to Nora Jones, and they are outlining their band, and the second paragraph starts talking about the group members of this band. So we want a sentence that just tells us the band structure, or just introductory facts about the band. We don't want something that is too overwhelming because we don't, or too detailed because we don't know these small details yet. We are actually introducing the members of the band in the second paragraph. So the options that we do have is sentence A, B, E, and G. So considering we're talking about the members of the band, we only have options B and G. So the reasons why we have only options B and G is because they start introducing members of the band. A starts talking about an example, an album, but we're not talking about an album yet. E starts saying, and his originals among the best of the evening, whisk the set along. This is quite random, and also if you pay attention to the first paragraph, Nora Jones actually goes by she, her, hers. You can see that in the third line where it says she added, fiddled with the strap of her cherry red Fender Stratocaster. Sorry, I'm struggling reading that. But yeah, that's the reason why it can't be A or E. For sentences B and G, there is a slight giveaway in terms of the process of elimination that we can use. And that's for sentence G. So it says her sharp band included Mr. Harris on banjo and Tony Sher on electric guitar, and she featured them well. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this now, but if you want to refer to someone as Miss or Mr., you actually have to say their full name first before saying Miss or Mr. And we don't know anyone before question 1 that has their first name and last name Harris. So the only option we actually do have would be B. And B is quite fitting as well because it explicitly states in the company of friends, and we are talking about the group of friends. It's a good segue into talking about the members of the group. For question 2, we have the first sentence of a paragraph again. So let's take a look at the paragraph beforehand, just for some context. The first paragraph over in the left screen details the lyrics of a song that was previously written, and also some details as in who was featured in it. So Mr. Julian, Miss Dobson was also involved, and yeah, so we afterwards we have the sentence, and then we start detailing the harmonic parts of the song. So they start describing the song itself, and also the album basically. So we want a sentence that introduces, I guess, the album, right? So or the album or people involved. So for option A, sentence A, Mr. Julian made a dramatic comeback after releasing his album Good Life while being labelless. This does fit the topic of an album, but the thing is, the focus is not on Mr. Julian. It's based on the band, or Nora. Now for option B, which is sentence C, in one standout moment, Miss Jones presented an unpublished Hank Williams song with his lyrics set to the melody. We want to stay on topic, and they are describing the song in those details, and C is kind of like an irrelevant fun fact, if we were to put it where question 2 is. For option E, and his originals among the best of the evening whisked the set along. So once again, we are still talking about Nora. So Nora goes by she, her, hers, and option E uses the pronouns of his. So it's just not applicable because we don't know who he is, and if we are talking about a he, we can't be talking about a he because the topic is focused on Nora. So the only option we can actually look at is F. Much of their effervescent set recalled the Little Willie's self-titled album released in 2006. This sentence actually introduces us to the album itself, and then afterwards we have the explanation of this album. Now in question 3, we have the first sentence of a paragraph again. So let's look at the content after it. So it says, its substance was classic Hank, opening line, and basically they start explaining that line. So we want to have a sentence that talks about Hank, right? And we have options B, but the thing is, we've already used B before, and even if that was an option that you guys have not chosen already, we can't use B because it talks about Miss Jones, and we're talking about Hank this time. C, however, does talk about Hank Williams. So therefore, it would be appropriate for us to put that in there, especially because sentence C starts talking about the melody, and the sentences after question 3 starts detailing what Hank's lines and the melody was like. Now for question 4, that's the very last sentence of a paragraph. So we want something that kind of sums up or just has like a small like a explanation as to what these sentences were saying beforehand. So B and C, like sentences B and C would not be appropriate in that case because we've already chosen it. But it wouldn't be applicable anyway because in B they start talking about the company of friends, and we're not talking about friends in this case. And in C, it's the focus is on Hank Williams, so that can't be applied. D, however, says projecting with a bell-like tone, she sounded like gutsy and tough, almost scarily self-assured. So this actually adds a bit onto the explanation of the song itself. It kind of wraps up the description as well. So in that case, answer C, so sentence D would be appropriate. For those of you that decide to choose G, that is not appropriate because they start talking about Tony Sher, Mr. Harris, etc. But we're not really talking about that. We're talking about the main ideas, and we want to summarize what has already been said, not introduce a new topic and new people into this paragraph. In question 5, we have a sentence that's at the very end of a paragraph. So we want a sentence that summarizes the explanation in that paragraph already. So in the paragraph of question 5, we're being told about Miss Dobson's set, Miss Jones, so Nora, and a little bit about Mr. Julian, how they were featured in this performance. So we want something, I guess, that reviews the performance itself. And so let's take a look at our options. So we have option A, which is Mr. Julian made a dramatic comeback after releasing his album. So this would not be an appropriate answer because it starts detailing about Mr. Julian, but Mr. Julian is not the focus of it. Mr. Julian is actually a little bit of a side character here. They are featured in this performance. So it's not a good idea to start talking a little bit more in detail about Mr. Julian. If we were to do that, it would be better off to start a new paragraph because he's not the focus of this paragraph. We have already chosen options C and F, so that cannot be our answers. And for option D, so sentence G, that's the only plausible answer in this case because it details a little bit more on the performance, and at the very last part, and she featured them well. It reflects on the overall performance and the show itself. So it's appropriate because it summarizes the explanation. For question 6, we have the first sentence of the very final paragraph. If you'd like to, you guys can just use the process of elimination. So we only have options A and E available, and the only option in question 6 that we do have is option E. So you could just immediately go to the fact that the answer is option C or sentence E. But for those of you still like a bit confused, we can only use option E because it brings the focus to Mr. Harris, who is one of the main focuses in question 6. It can't be option C because it starts detailing about a standout moment about Hank Williams, but we're not talking about Hank Williams at the moment. It can't be D because D is talking about a particular song. It's supposed to summarize the overall performance, and it's the beginning of a sentence. So we want something that actually introduces us to a new concept or summarizes the ideas that were previously talked about, and we're not talking about said song. We're talking about Mr. Harris. And then option D, which is sentence G, this can't be a plausible answer because we're, once again, the focus is on Mr. Harris. Mr. is a masculine, it's masculine, title, and G states her. And since it's impolite or inappropriate to mislabel people, so G wouldn't be a good option because it's not using the correct pronouns. This is our second text, so please screenshot and read this in your own time. And we'll get started with the questions. So we have, why was the world scientist warning to humanity statement unusual? So I really want to emphasize the fact that the question is asking us why. So most of the options that we do have, like A and D, that is true, right? But it doesn't give us a reason as to why it is a weird comment to make, or this it's a weird statement to make. B, it was extremely cautious comment for a scientist to make. Scientists often give quite cautious comments, but the comments that they usually make are an if situation. So if we continue doing so, then this might happen, right? It's like an unusual kind of speculative statement. But in this case, the answer would be C. It's uncharacteristically bold because the scientists are definitive. In this extract, scientists are definitive that if we continue being living the way that we are living, then we will ruin the environment. So it's bold in the sense that it's definitive and it is a prediction. So the only option we do have is C. Once again, A and D is not plausible because it just describes the overall statement. It doesn't give us a reason as to why this statement is weird. For question 8, what is the main reason for including the term eco-holocaust? So I put down the entire sentence on the screen, and you guys can see how this description, 50,000 species vanish annually and air, water, and soil are poisoned with civilization's effluence. This describes the annihilation, the extinction of these species. So the option we do have for that is B. If you don't understand that description there, you can also just think about the Holocaust as in like Hitler, right? It was a genocidal attempt, so that's linked with annihilation or the extinction. So the only option there, I guess, is B. In question 8, what does Suzuki believe is the best way to sustain the environment? So this is from the last few parts of the extract, where they start to detail the social aspects of protecting the environment. So in line 4, it says, we have to ensure full employment, justice, and security for all communities to serve our social needs. So there's an explicit answer which talks about the human social needs, and the sentences surrounding that part just detail how the physical environment can help with curating a better social life for human beings. So ultimately the focus is the social needs of people. Therefore the answer is C. Question 10 asks, what common idea links all 4 dot points listed? So on the right side is the 4 dot points, and the only plausible answer we have is A, mainly because we want to look at these dot points holistically, and if we choose options B, C, and D, these ideas are not communicated throughout all 4 dot points, but A is. So in A, it's linked to the value of recording events, like history. What's the point in things happening if things are going to be forgotten? The second dot point talks about our biological purpose, our place in the natural world. Why do humans exist, or what's the purpose of them compared to animals and flora? The third dot point talks about the repercussions of violence, and it questions whether or not we're here to have disputes, and if they're pointless. And the last one talks about the trust we should have in technology and science. So it asks us how we're talking to each other. It asks us if we should trust in reason and our own logic, and it talks about how perhaps we should consider each other's ideas in order to coexist with one another. All of these ideas are related to the purpose of living, or why human beings exist. Yeah, so I want to bring back the key points from the very beginning of this video, because I want you guys to just revise how these ideas are linked to what we just practiced. And yeah, so please just reconsider the structures of the text and what the texts were saying. And we will revise some ideas next week. And until then, I'll see you guys later, and please have a good week. Bye.